Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Coco in the Sun podcast. I am your host, Malika Critchlow. Very happy to be here today. So today I'm in a little different location, so I have to use a background, but we are still here, moving forward in the story of the Magdalene Manuscript. Oh my goodness. And furthering on into Judi Sion's story. So exciting times. Um, yeah, I don't really have any other insights today, except from just to reiterate what I talked about last week was for me, the journey has been self-love, honoring my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, examining them, being aware of them, and following my heart's joys. Joy is important to lead me to what's best for me. I forgot what I did the last time. When the energies are strong and intense, asking for assistance from my guides and angels to help center me and keep me in a state of mind of peace and harmony, calm and well-being. When asking for acceleration of my own evolution, ensuring that I also add in a way that's safe for me, that's best for me, that's full of joy and fun for me. Because again, my journey has been one of gentle integration, which I have enjoyed. It hasn't been overwhelming. When I do ask for acceleration, I do put that caveat of in a manner that's safe for me, that it doesn't overwhelm me, that's, enjoyable and fun for me. And it does accelerate in a way where I'm made of more things that I need to bring my awareness to assist in my healing and clearing journey in order to experience more love and be more love and be more understanding, not just to myself, but it helps bring an awareness to and a grace and allowance for other people and their own journey and less judgment of that. I have found this week that my focus has been confidence in what I want to come or know is coming, and how that confidence plays out. Or how it's kind of the same method as allowing and receiving. It has to do a lot with trusting and not stressing about how and when what you want comes, but knowing that it's coming and relaxing in that knowing. So that's not always easy to do, but I think that's where my focus has been this week, the direction I've been getting, that I need to focus on building that confidence, that knowing, that trusting. The faith, it could be described as so many different things: faith, confidence, trusting, allowing, receiving. They're all intertwined, and they may be little differences, or what I want to say, subtleties that make them different, but essentially it's all that ball of stuff is how um, the reality you want is created, I believe. So yeah, so that's what I've been kind of focusing on this week. And then also allowing it to be fun. So not so much hard effort and I have to think this way. I have to make sure my thoughts are this way. But wouldn't it be fun to have this experience and see how this experience shows up in my own experience, in form, in my reality? And wouldn't it be fun to see how that plays out? Um, Also last night, confidence in um not confidence so much as I remembered a video I saw like a few months ago where the guy had said, I think he took DMT, the legal form of DMT, but I think he lives in Amsterdam or something. And what he understood was people are what you say they are. And had given the experience of um his child's mother, and he was having a lot of difficulty with her and was defining her in one way. And so the universe had said, well, she's going to be that if you define that way, to define her another way, and she will be that to you in your experience. And so he did. And he said she's the best co-parent he's ever had. And he would never think that he would say that. So that came back into my awareness last night. So defining for myself the experience that I'll have with people. So that's what I'm working on when I'm, yeah, experimenting with to see how that plays out, you know, because you've had certain experience with people externally that teach you things internally, and they do stretch you. You're able to learn more about yourself in that aspect and allow for them to be on their own journey, their own evolution, be at their own level of consciousness because they have to experience that in order to get to the next level, right? And not judging where they are in their own experience. But taking it a little bit further now and taking charge of my own experience and saying, okay, when I interact with them, I expect to have this experience. They're going to be the most loving person. We're going to have the best conversations. We're going to get along so well. It's going to be so harmonious. And then seeing how that changes my external. So so that's where I am right now, working with confidence, then knowing and relaxing into that trust and fun and seeing how it occurs and um expecting how I define or how expecting the experience I want with others to to be what I want it to be by defining it and seeing how that plays out in the external. So that's what I'm working on. How are you guys doing? What's going on with you guys? How are you progressing? How are you dealing with these energies? There's an aunt. I thought this week we got some for 2 days there, and not for very long times. It lasted like a few seconds or a minute. But as soon as I felt the anxiety kicking in, I was like, angels, please help me center this. I think we got a lot of energy this week. And I think when the energy is like that, it's because we are expanding, and it's expanding by such a large amount that it can feel a little scary and anxiety riddled because we're letting go very quickly old paradigms, but we don't really know which old paradigms is clearing. So it's kind of close. I thought this week we got a lot of energy. So I had to do that a few times. I haven't had to do that since maybe last October. I think I had that last October, September, as I had those type of feelings. Late last year, it could have been even past. I could have been November, December too, but I haven't had in a few months that feeling, and I was like, ooh, some upgrades, some things are clearing quickly, and it's like it's feeling a little scary here, but was grounded. I had great conversations with two of my friends. I felt like a social butterfly again. Oh my goodness, back in connection with people and good conversations, so those grounded me too. So happy to have people I can connect with and laugh with and talk with and share with. So that was great. That came back into my experience. They were always there, but you don't like to bother people. So um really good conversations and more connection that way. And so yeah, feeling grounded. I cooked, I made some curry chicken and thing. And I mean, I tell you, those things ground me, things that I like to do on a human level. So I love connection um with people, but healthy, good conversations. And I got that and food. And I was digging up any plants. I have a few plants here trying to thrive and they're thriving, but one of them I'm playing with a little bit. I want to see if I can get it to be a little more happy. So I did that. It was good to get your hands in the dirt. Um, so yeah. Anyways, so I hope you guys taking it easy and listening to yourselves and your feelings and not suppressing and doing what's good for you. It feels good for you as long as it's not harming anyone else. But eating the things that feel good that you want to, like listening to your body and asking what it wants to eat. It'll tell you. Sometimes it tells me the night before. It's so strange how um my wants to eat has changed. It's crazy. Um, you know, and books and things you can learn that help you along your journey. So, yeah. Anyways, so let's get started so we don't waste any more time. Because the story is nice. I like the story. Okay. So we go in the last place we stopped was Judi had been in a difficult abusive relationship. She had finally, through her discernment, let go of it. It wasn't a very easy process, but she moved forward. She met someone else. She wanted to give him a gift, so she got him a gift through Tom Kenyon, and then they went back for more, and she got more messaging, and she's in a good state. She's in a healthier place. And I think the story is really interesting because it shows how our childhood can affect our decisions in adulthood, and then not staying in that what others say you are, right? And learning to love yourself, learning to want to give yourself the best, listening to your intuition and what brings you joy and following that path. I mean, she left a good job and an okay husband, but a dead relationship, and went on an adventure without knowing what was going to happen. And it wasn't an easy adventure, but I feel like she is learning so much more about herself and her strength and her love and her relationships, right? Um, that it seems worth it. So let's see where Judi is in her story. I remember the first time I met Pam Kenyon. It was several weeks after the fateful experience with the Hathors. She lit up the whole room with a glow that came directly like a light beam straight out of her heart. Her smile was sheer magnetism, her countenance pure goddess. She was one of the most beautiful people I have ever known. She and Tom became dear, dear friends, and when they moved onto the island almost next door, life felt really blessed, and our circle seemed complete. Then my friend went back to Europe for a few weeks. I was to join him there soon. He called several times a day for a week, and then he discovered his European business associate had been draining the corporate funds. Then this associate emptied all the bank accounts and fled. My knight and I still talk several times a day during this crisis, and I only finally realized how serious the loss was when I asked him point blank how much money he had left. He told me he had $20 in his pocket, and since that wasn't even enough to buy gas to get home, he was just going to leave the car in the parking lot and take the bus home. And then abruptly the calls stopped and the light in my heart went out again. This had been a very successful and powerful man who had collateralized everything he owned to the man who disappeared to get the funds to start a new business in America. So his loss was both financial and emotional. Many, many people were hurt when this occurred. And not only had my friend lost everything he had in the world, but he felt responsible for all his associates' employees who were now looking to him in their desperation. I remember the last phone call I got from my white knight. I could hear the tension in his voice, and I could hear the only slightly muffled sobs of a man in the background. When I asked about the sobs, my friend said it was an officer in the corporation who didn't know how to make his mortgage payment, and my friend had no money to give him. And then the phone fell silent. I slept with the cordless phone in bed every night, waking every hour or so to make sure there was dial tone. 6 weeks went by, and I was losing my mind with worry. He had come to my aid when I was at my worst. I had to do the same, but I didn't even know where to go. All the company phone numbers had been disconnected. Finally, in my desperation, I called the only person I thought I could get a message. I thought could get a message to my friend. I asked that he locate my friend and tell him that I was on my way to Europe to help because he had saved my life and now I must do the same. I just wanted him to know he wasn't alone. I asked him to tell my friend that no matter what had happened, we could work it out. That got a response, but not the response I wanted. I got a fax that said he just couldn't be everything to everyone any longer. It said that he had taken care of too many people for too long, and now he needed to take care of himself. He said that he was going to take some time and go away and think. He said he loved me very much, more than words could say, and that someday I would look up and see him walking down my road again. He told me not to come. He told me he would come back for me, but that would be a very, very long time before he could get there. I have no words for the feeling of loss. I huddled on the floor, holding the slick paper in my hand. I remember it was daylight outside when night fell inside my heart. Oh, the sun set inside me, and it would be a long time before dawn. I had barely read the facts when Ruby's neighbors in Virginia, the good Christian ones who'd always been able to tell everyone what to do in the name of Christ, called to say that Ruby had no business living alone anymore, and that if I didn't do something to get her out of there, they would turn her into social services. They said she was getting too mean and they couldn't be bothered with her anymore. Adrienne and I flew to Virginia and packed Ruby's meager belongings and brought her to our little island farmhouse. I possess an immense inner strength and survival, but I was reaching my furthermost edges. And I knew it. I was adrift on an ice floe, and it was in my heart. I had survived an abuser and the loss of what I thought was the love of my life, and now I had to take the 95-year-old source of my childhood pain. One night, shortly after she arrived, I was over at a girlfriend's house, sobbing my heart out. I drove home around 5 p.m. to find Ruby sitting in the window, just like she did when I was 18 years old. I shivered, took a deep sigh, and walked in. "And where have you been, young lady? How dare you come home so late?" Her bony finger prodded the air near my nose. She harumphed or made little spitting sounds and shook her head. "Good girls don't go out this late. It doesn't look good. Or maybe you don't care what people think." There it was. There was the source of my entire life of caring what other people thought. Something was gravely wrong with this picture. The words of my old teacher in the wind ricocheted in my ears. "Look around you, master," he used to say. "Look at all the people around you. Not one single person would step in front of a bullet for you. Not one person would die for you. If they won't die for you, why are you living for them?" I hated having Queen Victoria back in my house, and my heart ached for my friend, for someone who loved me just for who I was, not for who I appeared to be, or for how I looked, or even for what I did for him. Jericho came tumbling down. My walls crumbled beneath me. Nothing could support me any longer. There was nothing there. I had just begun to touch into my anger, finally, at the abuser, at all the abusers in my life. It had taken 40 years, but I had finally found my anger, and it was to become a great ally. Now I was to learn sadness with my friend's disappearance. It was the first time I thought someone finally actually loved me. Now the tears of 10,000 lifetimes came in torrents. There was nothing I could do to stop the pain. I had always been able to shore up my emotional dike, but these floods could not be assuaged. There was no comfort to be found. The eagles screamed, and I could not hear them. The great black fish surfaced, but my eyes could not see the wake. Even the white owl came to comfort me, but I could feel no loving stroke. I worked with pain and the desire to die for almost 2 solid years. I cannot exaggerate the intensity of this anguish. I cannot find the words in any thesaurus which, when swiped on paper, adequately capture the depth of this pool of torture. Do you know what happens when you cry for hours on end? There is a point reached in sobbing where you can only retch until you throw up, gagging and choking on pain. Oscar Wilde's great ballad looped endlessly in my head. Yet each man kills the thing he loves. By all, let this be heard. The coward does it with a word, the kind man with a sword. Cowards and kind men alike had killed me. I begged the gods to let me die. I desired death. I wanted death. I didn't have the courage to do anything about it, but I wanted it. I courted the fantasy in my mind and dreamed of having the courage to act on it. I cut absolutely everyone out of my life except for my daughters and Tom and Pam. Tom and Pam enfolded me in loving friendship, taking me into their inner sanctum like a wounded bird. 3 other friends stayed by me. My daughters held on to me. Adrian promised me that someday I would want to live again, a notion I couldn't believe. And Jennifer said, Mom, just imagine how amazing the next one will be. He's going to be even better. I thought she was insane. I will never let another man within 10 feet of me, I wailed at her. Never, never. Don't talk crazy. And so it was that I decided I needed some time to myself. I had processed a lot of emotional material already, it seemed to me, enough for one lifetime, and now I could handle no more. Caught between pain and anger, my death wish was growing. I couldn't remember anyone who had ever kept a promise to me. So many promises over so many years, and so it was that a dream was born. If no one else had ever kept a promise to me, I must keep one to myself. I had always promised myself that someday I'd take the girls to Europe on a journey of spirit. Desperate times, as they say, call for desperate measures. I took what money I could scrape, hired someone to take care of my mother, rented a car on the internet, and flew into Amsterdam with Jennifer and Adrian. It was potentially our last summer together. Jennifer was going to India alone in the fall, and it was Adrian's last summer before his senior year of high school. But high school could wait a month, I decided. Nothing she would learn in 1 month of public high school could ever equal what she would learn traveling Europe together hunting goddess sites. We landed in Amsterdam and were met by a friend of a friend. Ron took us home, determined not to let us sleep prematurely so that we would become acclimated to European time more quickly. Adrian fell asleep right away, but Jen and I pinched each other to stay awake. He put on a documentary video and promised it would entertain us. It more than fulfilled its promise. It was the story of the Priory of Sion, the story of my name. and the story of a priest named Saunier and treasure he found. One of the few remaining clues to the mystery he left behind was a parchment that read, "The treasure belongs to Dagobert and to Sion." I flashed through the little shack in Appalachia, where I was born, and my birth name, Zion, which came from Sion. I laughed at the equally portentous name I was given less than a year later when I was adopted Pope. I had always intended to take back my birth name when the woman who adopted me died. She was now 95 and quite alive, and I was caught between names as she was caught between dementia and sanity, this world and the next. The documentary unfolded a story I knew to be true, a story I knew in my heart and had shared with many people, but I had no idea anyone would ever tell such a story. I had logically deduced the truth from little things that strung together and from a woman's heart, which always knows the truth, or at least knows her truth. But there was evidence, or so it claimed, of what I had known for so long and felt so alone with. The documentary mentioned one name I remember, René Le Chateau, and I swore we'd find it. That's all I had written on a scrap of paper. René Le Chateau, somewhere in Europe, somewhere in France. We took off in the morning, and I had one goal, to find this place and solve my own mystery. We drove at breakneck speeds through Germany, assaulted by hail so heavy, and the roof glinted with dents in the sunlight of morning. We had much to cover before France, and we found ourselves in Ancona, Italy, where we jumped on a ferry to Greece. We literally followed the crescent moon to Delphi. We couldn't read the road maps. They were in Greek, but in the middle of the night, we ascended the mountains, and when the moon set, we followed our hearts. It's a funny thing to stand on land you once lived on and not be allowed to fully explore it. We sniffed out a little chain that said, "No admittance, blocking entry to the spring of the Pythia," or Pythia. How do you tell a swallow not to enter Capistrano? Hungrily, we drank the water and climbed the ancient steps, cut so deeply into the vaginal walls behind the spring. Then we went to Hera's spring near Nafplion and drank and bathed there. According to legend, she returned every year to restore her virginity. But the most haunting experience in Greece was not at a presupposed sacred site. We were asleep in a campground somewhere near Isthmia along the Mediterranean. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, Pam appeared and woke me up. She told me something, but I was too groggy, still half asleep, so she grabbed me and sat me bolt upright. I stared literally into her very face in all her splendor. She looked absolutely beautiful, radiant, and literally, she was there. She said 6 words to me, and I slumped back down. She grabbed me back up by the shoulders, and this time she shook me for effect until I woke enough to really hear the 6 words she repeated. She extracted a promise from me, and then she released me. I looked around to find myself sitting up on a Mediterranean beach in the middle of the night. I woke the girls and told them what happened. None of us could figure out what it meant. A few days later, we took a ferry back to Venice and crossed back over Italy and entered France to finally search for René Le Chateau. But there was no such place on any map we could find. So we decided to go to Arles and to see if the light was really different there. Van Gogh had painted there, swearing the light was different in Arles than anywhere else. And that's how we came to be just south of Arles late one afternoon as the sun hits a place of light unlike anywhere else I've seen on earth. I guess you could say I just followed the light after that. Arles itself felt too busy, so instead of entering the city, we turned south. The Mediterranean wasn't too far according to the map, maybe a detour of some 30 miles. As we drove, the land flattened and marsh grass peeked up between endless fields of lavender. Rounding a corner, we almost collided with a man on a white horse herding black bulls along the road. He wore an old sweat-stained Stetson and a pair of Wrangler jeans. This was a working cowboy, no show pony. Lathered chaps covered his front legs. We drove on, and the lavender fields yielded to full marshland with rivulets of water, and galloping herds of white horses were everywhere. Barns on either side offered riding, and we chose one. Trotting along, we rounded a corner and swooped hundreds of pink flamingos, which took to the air, leaving us behind in a stream of wind of hundreds of wings. The horses took it for granted. We were startled. I was forever enchanted. The road ended at the sea, and we got room for the night in a town where paella was easier to find than a crepe, and a bullfighting ring was where the town parking lot ought to be. I hate churches, I always have. To me, they are houses of hypocrisy. But I had read about a little church here built on a goddess site, as they almost all are, and we bumped into it walking along. But so it was that we entered the tiny church of Saint Marie de la Mer. The art depicted a woman in a boat, the Maries, and the story I had carried in my heart for so many years began to have a location and historical validation. Magdalene had been here. Through the years, Mary Magdalene had rather become my patron saint of sorts. I saw her as the lost bride, the feminine not only taken away from Christ by the Bible editors, but the woman shamed and vilified, the woman made into a whore, and hence all woman in her stead. Whenever I walked, sorry, whenever I asked the woman who raised me about my birth mother, she always cringed and sloughed off the question with a shudder and a less than deft air of inference as to the questionable morals of my birth mother. So perhaps I know personally the damage that can be done when a human being is so easily dismissed by even the hint of impropriety, never mind the outright label thrust on Mary Magdalene. Somehow, miraculously, we had found the place where Magdalene landed when she entered France after the crucifixion. She had come in a boat with several historically significant people, according to the legend held here. Among the people in the boat were a young girl who they called Sarah. Magdalene says her name cannot be translated into English. That is, it is very guttural, and that spelling it Sar would be more correct. SAR apostrophe H. Legend depicts her as a servant. I knew her to be the daughter of Yeshua and Magdalene, called the Dark One and presumed to be Egyptian because she had to be hidden in the shadows to protect her life. We visited the tiny crypt where Sarah stands all but one day a year, and were more enchanted than I ever remember feeling in such a surrounding. It was actually the only time I have ever felt holiness in a church. Tsar is the patron saint of the gypsies, and every spring tens of thousands of gypsies come from all over Europe to pay homage by taking her effigy to the sea and bathing her in an Isis ritual. All year they visit her in her crypt and bring her new robes and gently layer her until she swells with taffeta and netting and sequins and rickrack. They run their baby's fingers across her lips and kiss her wooden cheeks, smearing their tears into her wooden flesh. And when on that one day she rises high above them on a litter led by silver-saddled white horses snorting and prancing, and she moves through the throngs to the place at the edge of the sea where she landed with her mother. In my brief time standing before her in the crypt, she called to me, and I found I wanted to spend time with her, waiting patiently for my turn to step close to her and honor her over and over. I finally worked up the courage to touch her wooden cheek with my finger, and it brought tears to my eyes. The only way I could tear myself away was to promise Sarah I would return someday with the gypsies to watch her ride the clouds to the ocean. Nothing could keep me from finding Renee now, I told myself, not after this high. You can't imagine how we felt. Three women driving across Europe, sleeping at campgrounds, in the car, occasionally taking a hotel room, searching for history, for bloodline, for that which runs through the veins, driven by something beyond understanding. We had no tour guide, no maps beyond Michelin. But Rennie eluded us. We wound up at Lourdes amid jitters of sickness and palsy and aging, sagging bodies huddled together, shepherded by dozens of women in black robes. Sad, forlorn people shepherded by sad, forlorn-looking nuns were everywhere. Hundreds more desperately held plastic bottles in the shape of Mother Mary under faucets, filling them, capping them, and stuffing them into shopping bags to take home like any souvenir. Holy water in a plastic Mary. I was disgusted. Adrian, who has never said a bad word about anybody or anything, said, "This is the darkest place I have ever been. You can stay here if you want to, but can you take me to the edge of town and pick me up on the way out?" We survived Lourdes, and after exhausting myself looking for the light I never found here, we left that afternoon, leaving behind us in the rearview mirror black-robed nuns pushing black-draped litters and ancient wheelchairs back to hotel rooms and buses. There were no miracle cures in the water of Lourdes that day. My heart told me that Rennie was back behind us, somewhere so close we had almost driven past it to get to Lourdes. Our time is running out. Soon we had to be back in Amsterdam. There were planes to be caught and school for Adrian. The woman taking care of my mother needed to go home, and Jennifer was leaving to study in India in just a few days. In spite of that, I turned the car back east and headed back to the Pyrenees. Darkness overtook us, but the full moon sang to me as we rode in and out of hilltops. And when the moon began to disappear, little pieces of her eaten away by some invading force. I'm sorry, I missed that. And then the moon began to disappear, little pieces of her eaten away by some invading force. We pulled over and watched the full moon go into total eclipse somewhere in the foothills of the Pyrenees. We fell asleep that night in the car off the side of a back road somewhere on the way, we hoped, to Renee. I remember waking and stretching, amazed that I'd learned to sleep curled under the steering wheel. We awoke to a chill with dew still present and cows and the sound of chickens and roosters calling dawn. All day we drove into villages and down country roads, stopping here and there and asking for Renee Le Chateau. Someone gave us directions that left us in the driveway of a deserted house in the middle of nowhere. I have no idea how it is that we wound up in a little town south of Carcassonne. But here we stopped to ask directions to a hotel. We needed a bed that night. Well, the only place to stay anywhere around here is the old castle right back there on the river. I should have realized that after a full moon eclipse, we might be privy to some magic. Gripped by some sense of promise, we wound the turrets, climbing stone stairs worn by the ages. Thousands of feet had trod them until one step dipped to meet the other, like ancient tango dancers. The castle dated back to the days of the Templars, when the breezes blew stories of knights and crusades through the air, and mysticism filled the homes and the hearts of the Cathars, one of the most persecuted sects, who were ultimately massacred by the Catholic Church. I felt the mystery slip into my mind, and wrapped tendrils of a haunting that I had become so familiar with around my heart, capturing me and carrying me into dream time. In the morning, I slept back down the turret early and sat in the courtyard, encircled by those high walls, and sipped espresso and a croissant. Life is good in southern France. We parked the car and watched the willows weep in the rearview mirror as we chose the direction out of town. I turned right, then left. I don't know why. I can't tell you that I let go and something came and took the steering wheel. I just turned left and wound up a hill, round and up and up. Prickles broke over my face and arms and legs, and a feeling of elation took me. At the top of the mountain, we pulled into the tiniest of villages and parked. We walked in the only direction that kept us from falling off the mountain and found ourselves passing a bookstore with the obvious markings of esoterica. I cannot tell you how out of place the tiniest village I have probably ever been in an occult bookstore appeared to be. Our pace quickened up a rise, and then there it was, the tiny church at Rennes-le-Château. The door creaked just enough for effect, and we stepped inside, right past the devil himself, or so he is thought to be by the religious ignorant, about 3 feet high, carved in wood with cloven feet and horns and bare teeth, holding the holy water. On a panel, the Magdalene sat with a skull at her feet. In a painting at the Last Supper, she sits under the table. And as the disciples toast Yeshua, she brushes her cheek against his ankle, her hair wrapped around his feet. The ceiling is painted blue with stars, like an ancient Egyptian tomb. I quickly sat on a pew before my legs could betray my quivering heart. Beyond the church lay the home of the priests, Saunière and La Tour Magdala, which he built and so named overlooking the Pyrenees. The mystery of what Saunière found in his famous discovery was what the documentary was about, but it was not of consequence to me. I didn't want to know what he found or where he hid it. I had no urge to dig the graveyard. My digging urges were elsewhere. I wanted the truth behind the mystery. I wanted the alchemical truth, and I knew it had to do with the Magdalene and her tantric relationship with Yeshua. What could possibly have been so important that the Catholic Church destroyed a whole people and wreaked havoc on this entire landscape to keep secret? That Yeshua was not celibate, that Magdalene was no whore, but the bride of Yeshua, a high initiate, one of the highest in the temple of Isis, well prepared for her sexual relationship with Yeshua in the temples, that they had a daughter and that her lineage was literally the rightful inheritor of the kingdom to those who believed in or feared kingdoms as the church did. Okay, that is where I'm going to end today. And then, because the new chapter starts. And then, wait, it's trying to see how long it goes. And then we'll start the new chapter. See? Goodness gracious. You can't see it on here. So the backup. Anyway, guys, so that's it today for the podcast. I hope you have a great day. I hope you know you are loved, that you know you are loved, and you take time with yourself and you're gentle with yourself as you learn to follow your heart's choice. I hope you have a great day, a great weekend. Bye until next podcast.